Welcome to the Chaos Whispers of Healthcare, the podcast for busy healthcare leaders who are ready to get out of survival mode so they can focus on what matters most. This is where the burnout stops and the real talk starts. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Carter, and each week I sit down with healthcare innovators who get it. We will unpack the chaos, laugh through the hard stuff, and get you at least 2 practical tips you can use at work right away. If you're ready to clear the chaos and lead with impact, you've come to the right place. Let's jump in. Welcome back to another episode of the Chaos Whispers of Healthcare podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Carter. Today's guest is a highly experienced nurse executive and healthcare leader who's navigated several highly chaotic and complex career challenges. She has been a frontline leader, a corporate leader over several organizations, and she has a high level of expertise in the world of healthcare tech. I had the pleasure of meeting this exceptional woman during the start of my entrepreneur journey. We connected at the AONL conference in 2024 in New Orleans through mutual colleagues, and we immediately saw the light reflected in each other's stories. I am so excited to have her on today. It's the amazing Patches Seeley. Yay! Patches has served the healthcare industry as a registered nurse and healthcare executive with over half of her career in both clinical strategy and operational leadership roles. And those ranged from inpatient care delivery, clinical informatics and analytics, patient logistics, ambulatory and diagnostic scheduling, clinical surveillance, healthcare engagement, and virtual nursing services inside both a sales-oriented healthcare service organization to a multi-state, highly complex, integrated delivery organization. Most recently, she served as a strategic clinical advisor to health tech startups and mid-sized healthcare technology companies, as well as large healthcare delivery organizations. Woo, girl, you've done a lot. Welcome to the show, Patches.
Thank you. Thank you. So glad to be here, Megan. And thanks for that great kind of bio release. Sometimes when you inventory those things, you think, wow, I'm so tired.
Yeah, it makes sense now.
And it does sound chaotic whenever you, it does sound like chaos. So what a great way to kick off a Chaos Whispers podcast.
That's right. I love it. I feel like you've dabbled in just about every aspect of our complex healthcare system here in the U.S. You know operations, you know tech, you know consulting. I mean, you've experienced so much. Tell us about how you became a healthcare innovator.
Yeah. When I think of an innovator, I think of like someone in a lab, in a microscope or, tinkering with machinery. And so, but, I had to, I would say, evolve my definition of an innovator. And I've come to accept that as a truth about myself. And one of the, I think, little known facts, I have a background in psychology. My first degree is in psychology. And although I did not necessarily pursue mental health nursing, everything I have done in my career has had that thread of what is the emotional reaction? How are clinicians, operators, business professionals thinking, feeling, and reacting to what's happening in the environment? So I have kept a steady kind of thread of absorbing knowledge from some of the great psychological experts in the industry and adjacent to healthcare. And so I think that there's a term called just kind of cognitive curiosity that there's an innate sense of curiosity in human beings, and we drive to find problems and seek to solve them for the satisfaction of just understanding. And our brains naturally gravitate to the excitement that comes from solving a problem. So there's, I think, some innate quality in all of us that creates the desire to innovate. And then courage and innovation, I think, kind of grows and builds on itself a bit. So if you have one innovation that you can identify some success with, then you're challenged to find the next innovation or to understand the next problem to solve it. And so I think that natural innate curiosity has carried me a long way. But then to inventory, where has that innovation improved something? Just kind of continues to fuel you to innovate. So I don't think innovation is something that you have to necessarily teach. There are methodologies around it, but I think we all have an innate sense of interest and cognitive curiosity to solve problems. So I think that's how it started for me.
Yeah, I love that. That's incredible. And I forgot
Yeah,
to mention that, yeah, that you do have that background in psychology because you've mentioned that before.
yeah.
And is okay, so do people ever, when you share that fact with people, do they ever go, oh gosh, she's automatically psychoanalyzing me? Do they immediately like walls up? Can you see that?
Yeah, they do, and it's true.
Yeah.
I am always in an active listening, state where
Yes.
I'm seeking to understand what's below what you might be saying, maybe
Yeah.
more what your body language is reflecting,
Yeah.
and that has served me well in all of these career pivots because humans are humans, and humans are going to human. You
And
know,
that's like a superpower, Patches, because that with your patients as a clinician, incredible. We all have to learn how to do that. But to
yeah,
have that added background and that training in a
yeah,
boardroom where people are having high stakes debates and conversations,
absolutely.
you're people watching and observing and you're recognizing how best to respond. I mean, I can't imagine. That's got to be such a superpower.
It is. And fortunately, I've also kind of gravitated professionally to projects and bodies of work that demand that you start with the person's emotion first.
Yeah.
Lots of change management work. You start with the emotion first if you ever intend to evolve them to a new way of thinking and
Yeah.
a new way of doing. And so
Absolutely.
you really have to start with that. It's the basis for empathy.
That's
And
that's beautiful.
yeah, so
Absolutely incredible. I
it's a
love that.
probably the
Makes so much
favorite thing
sense.
about all of those career pivots.
Yes, yeah. Well, you do obviously have a courageous ability to pivot repeatedly in your healthcare leadership journey. And I know you have hundreds of examples for this, but share with us one of your most chaotic moments in your leadership.
You bet. What chaos looks like to me and the way it manifests in me as a human is a stir kind of in my heart. And a stir of uncertainty is what chaos feels like and how it manifests in me. And probably the point where I had that almost to the point of inertia. I had difficulty kind of moving forward. I had an unexpected career change with an organization I had been with for 19 years. And then shortly after transitioning to another part of the industry, had another unexpected career transition after only 7 months. Two very different experiences. But as I began to do this writing and soul searching and reflecting and interviewing and research around how individuals go through career transitions,
Right.
I decided for myself that it was time to do some private consulting work. And the chaos that I felt was, well, who am I outside of a role? How do I define my value? What are the differentiators that I can bring to the marketplace? What are my domains of knowledge? How do I define my product? And it just felt chaotic, and to kind of be uncertain the direction that I was going to take this vision that I had to do private consulting work, and how does that look? So I felt a sense of chaos at that time in that particular transition. And it took me a little bit to get out of it, and we can talk a little bit more about how I did that. But yeah, that felt like a pretty chaotic moment.
It is chaotic, and there's probably, I would assume, some grief associated with that too. And I can empathize with the tumultuous,
Mm-hmm.
unexpected journey that some of us go through, having pivoted from traditional corporate to where I am now as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I would love to explore this concept of career pivots and longevity a little bit more, because we're seeing more reductions in force at the healthcare corporate
Yeah,
and leadership levels right now. And we know it's due to ongoing budget crises, but it feels short sighted to reduce nursing leadership any more than it already has been. And we know this is a critical pain point that's
yeah,
creating so much fear and anxiety for many of our healthcare leaders that might be listening right now.
yeah.
So let's talk a bit more about that pain point and some of the feelings we might experience during times like these. Could you share your thoughts on how these rifts or unexpected career pivots can feel?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll represent my own feelings, but just for the benefit of our listeners, I researched and interviewed multiple people who had gone through a career transition because I was deeply interested in how to move people from a state of chaos, fear, self-doubt, uncertainty back to a resilient state so that they could, I would say, re-enter a marketplace with the level of confidence that they left with. And what I was seeing in people that had gone through this and other professionals who had experienced it was this deep sense of self-doubt and fear. And which puzzled me because these were people at the top of their game. And when you talk about it being a pain point, you're 100% true. This ironclad ideology of nurse leadership and, you know, the roles and they're sacred and you can stick around for years and everybody always it's really irrelevant now. It doesn't hold its same relevance. Organizations are having to make those kinds of decisions on a regular basis and no role is protected. And I would say that that the fear, doubt, insecurity can start way before the end of the relationship too. You're in the organization and you're seeing, you know, maybe a organizational shift that reduces your historic influence. You're seeing organizational shifts that diminish your expertise in a particular area. Those are small kind of micro traumas that happen before even a severance experience might happen or a layoff experience might happen. So some of these traumas are building in an individual before the hard conversation is even had. We're perpetually kind of signal searching in healthcare now because the anxiety around layoffs is high. 78% of people have anxiety around job loss now.
Wow.
And that's not solely in healthcare, but that's a lot of collective anxiety about losing a job. And so I would say for nursing in particular, too, we're so connected often to mission and the sense of belonging and drive that I think we are uniquely positioned for pain in that space. And so if we don't build some resilience, we'll have a challenge. But that is a real pain point. It continues to be relevant. People are out there signal searching in their organizations. And what happens, just like your phone when it's searching for a signal, the battery goes down.
Right.
So too does your battery as you're experiencing the beginnings of a potential layoff or severance or, you know, separation, whatever language you want to use. So I think that the pain point is real. Fear, doubt, and insecurity is real. And you really have to be on a mission to stay resilient in this climate, you know. So
I love that. I can empathize with this so much. And I know you know my story, but for the sake of the audience, I had to pivot quite a bit as a leader to get to the next level of an org chart because I had to leave each organization to do it. And it seemed like there was a pattern of executive leaders not being able to see their own current talent bench as more than their current roles. And every time it wasn't until I was submitting my notice to leave that they would scramble to try to keep me there. And at that point, it's too late. So whether it's a unexpected riff, you know, a layoff situation, or if it's I'm forced to leave because I can't grow here, I think probably somewhat similar grief journeys maybe. And I love that you're studying this because I think it's something that carries a lot of shame.
Yeah.
And so we don't have these open, honest conversations about it.
Yeah.
So for the healthcare leaders who might be facing something like this, a massive career pivot, whether it's voluntary or not, what are some practical strategies you might share with them to help them navigate this chaotic time in their journey?
Yeah, I want to make one more point about the relevance of this conversation. I have done 4 podcasts in less than a year, written 2 articles, and I have become an accidental expert at career transitions. And I can't tell you how many people I get this. Can you just talk to this person who's going through this?
It's that psychology background. They want you to.
It's an honor. Yeah. It's an honor to be seen in that way, to hold someone in such a vulnerable state. Yeah. It's an absolute honor. But it tells you just how relevant this conversation is and the climate and healthcare that we're in. And so, just wanted to point that out. But practical strategies. I mean, kind of relational cultural theory is a thread in nursing, in particular nursing leadership. We are relational, tend to be relational individuals. And so cohort matters. And I always like to say that community is the antidote for career transitions.
Mm.
And having the right community around you is critical, and a superpower that you can develop. I'm honored to have you in one of my communities, so to speak. And when you think about that, so build community. Um, I went through the exercise of actually bucketing my contact list. These are my connectivity in nursing. These are my individuals who have connectivity in nursing. These are my connectivity to healthcare IT. These are my, sales oriented connection. Just to kind of understand the layout of the community that I had, and that helped me to create a brain trust of sorts. Then I took that community, and I highly recommend this in that period of chaos that I was telling you about earlier, to take that community and almost kind of like build it out in concentric circles. So there's a really close community that you can really have the tough conversations with. I've got this offer letter in front of me. Tell me how you see this. Let's talk through how to negotiate. When you can talk to people about money,
Yeah,
they're closely connected to you,
that's
right?
right.
That inner circle. If you can
Definitely.
say, girl, I am not ready for this role. I don't think, please help me. And that level of vulnerability is that closest circle, perhaps. And then that kind of builds out from there, right? So build your community, keep your community, water and feed your community, whether you get a W-2 job or you decide to be a consultant or you decide to join another sector of the industry, keep your community on repeat and stay in it. Get into your local organizations that are meaningful and matter to you. Diversify those. Don't sit at the tables that you've been sitting in. Diversify that a little bit. Go out into other parts of the industry maybe and seek new knowledge. That curiosity will continue to fuel that sense of resilience. I would also say that re-inventory yourself. There's your job self and then your whole self. Go to that circle, go to that community and ask a few questions. How do you see me? When you think of me, what are the domains of knowledge that you believe I have? What is the secret sauce that maybe differentiates me from another nursing leader who's done something similar to what I've done? And then inventory yourself, like in your jobs or careers, in all of the thread. What was the new narrative that you started that was uniquely yours? What were the contributions that you made, and what is the similar thread? So it's a really reflective exercise as much as it is a reach out into your community and get those trusted people to answer those questions for you. I did it via email because I thought it might be easier for people to truly be honest if they could write their thinking, and it served two purposes. Tactically, it helped me understand what people thought was my area of expertise. And then it also told me, what do they not know about what I've done? Maybe that has value in the marketplace. But what it also, the nice things that people say about you.
Which is so needed in those early days.
In that crisis phase of confidence and lack of clarity, and it really gives you agency over what's happening to you, which is a big part of the grief curve, is that you don't feel like you have control of the narrative of your career. And it just isn't true.
Right.
It just isn't true. And so to have these people that you have created in your community circle, brain trust, whatever you want to call it, then say these really nice things about you, just helps you with your resilience. And there's nothing wrong with that. And just soak it all in,
Yeah.
So those are a couple of practical tips that I have. And regardless of what your next career move is, keep your community active.
And I think a great point too to add to that is be proactive about that. Don't wait, we are reactive creatures because we are spread so thin so often in healthcare, and we're just trying to get through our shift or our week or a project.
Yep.
Being intentional about building community throughout your career.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you every single promotional opportunity I had was because of a relationship I had with someone who thought highly of me and recommended me personally. It's not because I applied online and just blindly hoped that someone would notice me. So, whether you're a new leader or you're even highly experienced and this, be intentional and make time, even if it's just a quick 30-minute virtual lunch. I mean, make time to connect with people. I have a quarterly list that I just kind of keep up with. I'm not super prescriptive with it, but I intentionally check in with my quote community, like you described, to continue those. And I always ask what I can do for others. If you can be proactively generous with other people, not for the sake of getting something in return, but to truly love on them like that, when you're in need, that community will absolutely be there for you.
Show up for you. And I think that also, I think for nursing in particular, serves that service orientation that we naturally come with. And
Definitely.
And I can speak from experience in conversations with you because I'm in your community. You
Yeah.
are always interested in how can I help you with whatever the next step is. And so I know you live that mission in real life. You're not just saying it on the podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's my testimonial, friends.
But
So
yeah,
funny.
I really, those are the tactics that have helped me. I was in an organization for a very long time who I dedicated 1000% focus to, and did not build community as richly as I wished that I had. And then when my career change was ahead of me and I could kind of feel that coming, I started to reinvigorate that. I always thought of networking as like a sales thing.
Yeah.
I'm not a salesman. I don't need to network. It just isn't true. That was some kind of strange tape that was in my head from some time ago or something. But just to, again, use that concept of relational cultural theory to enrich and enliven your career will carry you forward because doors will open.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I'd love to talk real quick. We can just touch on this, but if I'm sitting here and I'm in the first 30, 60, 90 days of going through something like this, either I was part of a reduction in force or something happened and I'm in that grief process. Like we all know it, that kind of that deep, dark, who am I? Was it all a dream? Am I worthy? Do you have any like practical strategies for how to, whether that's self-care or how to reframe what you're going through? I for me, it's, acknowledge that what you're feeling is valid. Remember you have two halves of your brain and they're very different. Your left brain's going to logic the heck out of it and try to make sense of it. And your right brain's just going to feel all the feels. And you're a whole person that has both experiences, so what are some strategies you think in those first several days when you're going through something like this that someone could use?
In that crisis mode. Yeah. So looking for another job can almost be a full-time job in and of itself.
Yeah.
And sometimes those actions serve as a distraction. So spend maybe part of your days engaging in that, but also part of your day in reflection and metacognition, thinking about your own thinking. How much of your brain space is being consumed with, well, when I was in that meeting, I should have done this, or maybe if I had said that, and realizing the trauma of that. If you're spending a lot of time in that space, I encourage you to seek to turn that off. Maybe easier said than done, but it's not helping you.
Yeah.
It's not helping you. And spend your time watering the grass on the side of the fence that tells your story of all of the things that you've offered in your career, in the service that you've been. Even something as small as going back to cards or texts or emails or something that someone shared with you that was really positive about your career. I have this book of thank you notes that I've kept over the years that people have shared, or little cards. And that notebook can be life-giving whenever you need to pull yourself out of the emotional journey. And then just reach out, get to that community again, even when you're feeling, maybe some shame about what happened. Write your narrative. When people ask me, this is what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about this in the truest context. I am not a failure. In most cases, healthcare layoffs right now
Yeah.
are not performance related.
Right.
They're related to the context of where the organization is in the marketplace, how things are going,
Yeah.
and not necessarily your contributions. So spend time in reflection. Look, make your connections. It shocked me, at least, how life giving my connection
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Um, and then the idea of never talk yourself out of what somebody suggests you do. Somebody
Yeah.
says, "Well, you should connect with my colleague so and so," or
Yeah.
this kind. Do it.
Yeah. You never know.
You never know
Yep.
what that conversation is going to lead to, and the nugget of either a job itself. I mean, that would be a best case scenario if
Right.
you're looking right, but it may also lead to just a nugget of inspiration
Yeah.
or a nugget of connection
Yeah.
or so you would be surprised, I think, at how life-giving your community can
Yeah.
be. But
I love that. I love that too.
can walk you out of your shame.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll put a plug in here too, because I'll speak on behalf of nursing as a nurse, and you are too. We tend to resist the idea of professional help and support. And what I would just say to anybody who's struggling right now going through this, you are going through a very traumatic incident that ranks very high on a stress scale. It's,
Yep.
akin to divorce, birth, death. I mean, this is huge. Get help, talk to someone, whether that's a counselor, therapist, whoever, but go out and get that help for yourself. You are worthy of that support and help. And you're
Mhm.
not weak for needing that. You're going through a traumatic life change. Get the help you need. No shame in that whatsoever.
None at
Yeah.
all. And organizations have at least, I think, wised up to that truth
Yeah.
and will offer often, services,
Yeah.
after a riff,
Definitely.
engage. They're
Yeah.
there for you. They're built for a
100%.
reason.
Yep.
Take advantage of it. I certainly did. In my
Yeah.
second
Same.
experience, I definitely took advantage of it.
Same.
And,
Same.
it can't hurt. It
Absolutely.
can't hurt.
Yep. You deserve support for sure. Well, every single practical tip you just gave is literal gold patches. It's unfortunate,
Yeah.
but we often don't know where to turn for advice when we're facing those feelings of shame, guilt, inadequacy in our career journey. So thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your powerful story with us.
You bet. You bet.
Life is hard, and life in healthcare is even harder. So I like to ask each guest at the end about humor and joy because they are so necessary to maintain our well-being long-term in this industry. So where are you going for the laughter in your life right now?
Yeah. So, laughter is a big part of it. My husband is pretty entertaining. So honestly, I feel like I'm a comedian that lives right here in my home.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, he's a really funny guy. Uh,
Oh,
but for me, music is a big source of excitement and relief and connection.
yeah.
And so I spend a lot of my time, you know, earpods, in and listening to music, maybe exploring new artists and artistry and understanding what their stories are behind what they wrote, sang, or played.
Yeah.
It's kind of a little side hobby of mine, and the amount of ridiculously fun facts that I have about artists, like
Yeah.
it's probably its own podcast, honestly. But
I
it's just
love
something
it.
out of my brain that just brings me joy.
Yeah.
It just brings me joy. So, so laughter, for me comes from mostly friends and family. Of course, we're also, you can get into some doom scrolling, so I don't recommend that. But, there are a couple of people you can maybe follow on some of your social media platforms that,
Yeah.
puppies, dogs, babies,
Yes.
animal humor, I'm
The
here for.
dopamine gold mines. Yeah.
Exactly. Be careful with that too, I guess. But yeah, so those laughter, for me in big measure, it's this side hobby of music and sound and
Love
how
that.
people think of their artistry is always a fascinating topic to me that
That is
gets me
so
out
cool.
of my world, so to speak.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
love that. I
that's a
love
good
that.
question. It's a really good question.
Love it. Well, thank you so, so much, sweet friend, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to chat with me. I have a feeling there will be a listener or two who will find comfort and courage in your words. If our listeners want to connect with you further, where can they find you?
LinkedIn is the best place, and I would say the door is open. So do not feel afraid to reach out to me. You would not be the first person as a complete stranger that said, I heard you talk about your experience in career transitions. Can I talk to you about mine? Please, the door is open. I would be delighted to. And so don't shy away from that. Please do reach out.
So generous. I love that. And just for the listeners, I will include all of Patch's contact information and all of her amazing practical strategies in the show notes. So until next time, cheers to you, Chaos Whispers.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks for joining us on the Chaos Whispers of Healthcare. If today's episode resonated with you, please be sure to follow this podcast, rate, and leave a review on your favorite platform. I'm Dr. Megan Carter, and I will be back next week with more real talk, fresh strategies, and guests who are redefining what it means to lead with impact. Want to keep the conversation going? Be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn and download free tools and resources from my website. Both links are in the show notes. Let's heal this broken healthcare system together, one day at a time.